Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about the phrases that we use when we meet and when we greet another person. First of all, you have to know that there are two different forms of languages. We can sometimes use a formal language and sometimes we use an informal language. A formal language is used when we are speaking with a person that we don't know very well, a person that is a stranger to us. And when we use an informal language is when, for example, we are talking to a friend, a very good friend, or a relative, a brother, a sister, somebody in our family. So let's see what happens when we usually meet and greet another person. So first of all, okay, there are usually three steps. The greeting in itself, and sometimes we mention the time that has passed since we last met that person, and we often ask a question to the person we're talking, okay, to find out what's new in their life. We're asking a question about any novelties because we want to continue the conversation. So let's look at the greetings first. So here, when we greet a person, we can use two different sets of greetings, the formal ones and the informal ones. So let's go through the list of the formal greetings. So we would say, for example, to a person that we don't know very well, we would say things like hello. We can say hello, Mr. Smith. Normally, we will use the salutation here, the title Mr. here, or we can say Mrs., or we can say Ms., or sometimes it's pronounced Miss if the person is rather young. If the person is not really young, we can say Ms. When we say Mrs., it's because we know that we are talking to a woman that is married. A Ms. is not a married woman. Okay, she's a single woman, whereas Mrs., okay, is a woman that is married. So if we say hello, Mrs. Smith, we know that, okay, this person, this woman, is married. So we can usually use the last name of the person. Hello, Mr. Smith. Hello, Mrs. Smith. Or hello, Ms. Smith. We can also say things like good morning. Good morning is formal. We can say good afternoon. We can say good evening. We can say good morning, Mrs. Smith. We can combine things together. If we're using an informal language, we would say things like hey, or we'd say hey Bob. We're using the first name of the person. Hey Bob. Hey Tom. If there is more than one person, okay, we could say things like hey guys. Guys is when there are more than one person. So if we have two or three people standing in front of us, we could say hey guys. We can say things like hi. Hi is informal. We wouldn't say necessarily hi to a person we don't know. So we would rather say hello or good morning. But to a person that we know very well, we would say hi. Hi Han, hi Bob, hi Tom. Now let's look at what happens when after we just mention our greeting, what we usually or what we often say. We talk about the time that has passed since we last met. So we can use expressions like, it has been a long time since we met. It has been a long time since we met. Or we would say, it has been a moment since we met. It has been quite a moment since we met. Sometimes we could say things like, our last meeting dates back to a very long time. So these three expressions are very formal. If we're talking to a very good friend, we wouldn't use the same language. We would use an informal language. We would say something like, long time no see. This is a sort of an incomplete sentence, okay? It's long time no see. or it's been a while. A while is a synonym of a moment. It's been a while. It's been a moment. If we're using the expression it's been ages, ages here means it's been a long, long, long time. Okay? So we can use all three expressions to let the other person know that we think that the time that has passed since we last met has been quite long. After that, very often, we would normally ask a question to find out what's new in the person's life. So we could use expressions like, how have you been? When we're using an expression like, how have you been? We want to know how the person has been, what's new in her or his life. We could ask a personal question like, how is your family? If we're using how's your family, this is very formal and you want to know what is new in the person's family. Or you could ask a question about the person's spouse. The spouse is either a husband or a wife. So here, okay, how is your spouse? How is your husband? How is your wife? You want to know what is new with the person's spouse. Okay. How are your children? You want to know what's new with the person's children. You might want to know too what's new with the person's job, what's new with the person's career. So you would ask a question, a formal question like, "How is your career? Is everything okay at your job?" But you would formulate it in a very formal way. How is your career? If if you're using an informal language, you would say, "Hey, what's up? Sup?" Sometimes we simply hear sup. Okay, it's a short form for what's up or what's up. Okay, those are equivalent. Those are synonyms. Okay, you can also say things like what's new, what's new with you. You want to know what's new in the person's life. What's going on? So when you use this sentence, you want to know what is taking place at the moment. What's happening in the person's life at the moment. If you're using how's everything, you want to know how are things? How are the daily activities of this person? You can say how are things? It's a synonym. It's the equivalent of here, how's everything? But notice that things here is plural. That's why we are saying how are things and not how is things. We're saying how are things. You can say to how's your day if you want to know about the person's day. If the person is having a nice day, a good day, or a bad day, for example. You could ask also the question, how's your life? In general. This is in general. How's your life? Okay. So those are the sentences that we usually ask when we meet and when we greet a person. So a meeting could look like something like this. We have here Bill and Mrs. Smith, and they meet. So Bill could say, "Hello, Mrs. Smith. It's been a long time since we met. How have you been?" The person here, Bill, could say all these sentences one after another, okay, and then let Mrs. Smith answer. "Hello, Mrs. Smith. It's been a long time since we met. How have you been?" And then Mrs. Smith would reply, "Hello, Bill. I'm fine. How are you?" This language is, of course, very formal. Let's look at another example. Okay, here Bill could say, "Good morning, Ms. Jones. It's been quite a moment since we met. How are you?" And then Ms. Jones could reply, "Good morning. I'm fine. And you?" When Miss Jones is saying "and you," she's returning the question to Bill. She's returning the question, "How are you?" Let's look at another example here. This time, the language will be informal. Okay, so we here have Tom and Bob in their meeting, and because they're good friends, okay, Tom is using an informal language. He's saying things like, "Hey Bob, long time no see. What's up?" It's all combined together, okay? One sentence after another. "Hey Bob, long time no see. What's up?" And Bob would say, "Hey man, I just started a new job." So here, Bob is letting his friend Tom know about what's new in his life. And in this case, it's a new job. Let's look at another example. Here, again, informal language between Tom and Bob. And Tom would say, "Hi Bob, it's been a while. What's new? What's new with you?" You can all combine these sentences one after another. "Hi Bob, it's been a while. What's new with you?" And Bob would say, "Hey man, I'm in love." So here, okay, Bob is telling, okay, what's new in his life. And the novelty in his life is that he is feeling in love. Let's look at another example here. All right, again, informal language. Okay. "Hi Bob, it's been ages. How's everything?" And Bob says, "Hey, I'm feeling terrible. I just lost my job." So here, okay, Bob is not feeling good. He's feeling terrible. He's feeling awful, actually, because he lost his job. So, okay, it's not a very good day for him. That's why he has this sad face.